In the early days of the internet, a website was launched by a man known only as Dimitri. On his site, one could find all manner of peculiar, often borderline legal materials offering instructions on everything from meditation to the extraction of dimethyltryptamine. This would be something a little different to the garish GeoCities and HTML cacophonies of the early 90s. Welcome to the WEIRDNET. To the WEIRDNET. To the WEIRDNET. Before the authoritarians began to encroach, before the censorious morons of the mainstream started to lay claim to our freedom of expression, the internet was a different place. It was an informational wild, wild west. A no man's land where edgy content was commonplace and where grown men would wait 3 hours to see a pair of poorly digitized tits. They were hard times. Yet, in this infinite desert of ones and zeros, there existed an oasis for the psychonauts and mystics among us. Deoxy.org appeared in 1993 and offered one of the most eclectic, eccentric, and downright weird selections of material available at that time. The name Deoxy itself is a shortening of what the webmaster referred to as the Deoxyribonucleic Hyperdimension, a McKenna-esque nod to Dimitri's love of tryptamines and science, which would also inform much of the site's content over the years. Its minimal design and basic navigation made it ideal for the limited bandwidth available in those days. Being predominantly text-based at first, much of the material on the site was just text documents copied from academic works or hand-typed copies of published commercial works made available for free download, but over time, its library would grow to include psychedelic research, anarchist handbooks, and all manner of weirdness. Deoxy came to include a massive number of embedded clips from the now defunct Google videos, and later a wiki section which would provide many with an introduction to people like Terence McKenna and Alan Watts. All in all, no other site at the time offered anything like the range of topics that Deoxy did. More importantly though, it was one of the original bastions of free speech online and created a community of users who cared about one another and the world at large. Dimitri provided a site where controversial discussions could be had, where detailed information on the production and safe usage of entheogens could be found, and where seekers of knowledge could get a foothold on the path. That was only the front page. Deoxy.org was kinda like a trip on a unique psychedelic. Immediately, the artwork screamed tryptamines, while other pages had a more lysergic quality to them. It was all very natural and simple at first. Just a load of hyperlinks which would all lead to various parts of the site, often leading you to stumble upon some seriously obscure material that could take you off down the rabbit hole at any moment. Given how early in the history of the internet Deoxy came about, it was quite groundbreaking in its own right, as I don't recall seeing any other site that was quite so complex. Or at least not one that wasn't coded by a paranoid schizophrenic savant. Gradually, it expanded and evolved into this bizarre mix of science, politics, and mysticism, complete with an active chat room and a continually growing user base. The site predominantly focused on entheogens, with particular reference to DMT and what some would refer to as New Age material. But it grew to include material on such disparate subjects as revolutionary politics, quantum physics, tantra, conservation, and green energy. For most, though, it was the psychonautic content and philosophical musings that held the most appeal, since nowhere else offered anything similar. Deoxy predated even the most well-known psychonautic sites such as Erowid, Blue Light, and even long-gone places like The Hive, where discussion of drug synthesis was typical. With a fierce passion for freedom of speech, Dimitri allowed for this sort of conversation to happen. he opened the door to outsiders who, for example, like Daniel Siebert, would go on to create new developments in the world of psychedelics and beyond. It was the commitment to free speech and free expression that set Deoxy apart from the other sites. It was fearless, railing against political correctness from the start and championing the work of underground mystics, urban shaman and academic experimentalists. Of all of them though, Deoxy is probably best known in many people's minds as one of the original repositories of the work and talks of legendary psychonaut and scholar Terence McKenna, the Celtic bard of psychedelics. McKenna deserves a video to himself really, although it's maybe not quite WEIRDNET enough. But suffice it to say, Deoxy popularised both Terence and his brother Dennis, as well as their psilocybin adventures and methods of mushroom cultivation. Aside from McKenna though, other psychedelic luminaries such as Gracian Zarkov, Timothy Leary and St. Robert Anton Wilson were included in the catalogue of chaos. One thing all of the people included on the site had in common though, aside from enjoying tripping balls, was their commitment to free thought and free expression, away from governmental control, corporate censorship, and all the shit we're fighting against today online. While it wouldn't be wrong to say Deoxy.org was primarily about psychedelics, it would be unfair not to mention the amount of information stored there, garnered from the religious and mystical traditions from around the world. For many psychonauts, psychedelics aren't something recreational. They're tools with which we can perturb consciousness and observe the effects. In the same way, certain methods of meditation or mental posturing can perturb consciousness so that its working can be better understood. And so the crossover between these seemingly distant worlds of psychedelics and spirituality isn't something uncommon. Deoxy offered a unique autonomous zone, a haven for the misfits, the kitchen chemists and the renegade physicists of the world, where we could absorb knowledge from previously unknown sources. It offered a doorway into the hyperdimensions of human thought, where quantum connections between reality and fiction occur, and all manner of strangeness seeps into the world. The simple answer is, I have no idea. And nor do many others, as it would seem. But hey, I figured I would do a bit of digging and see whether I could shed any light on the mysterious Dimitri. Even the name Dimitri was considered by many to be an alias, since it's a commonly used slang term for dimethyltryptamine, one of the most mysterious of the psychedelics, and one which got a lot of attention on the site. In the early days of the internet, the rules on stuff like website ownership and using your real name were less stringent than they are now, so it wouldn't have been hugely surprising if it turned out to be an alias. In communications on the site, he was saying his name as Dimitri Novus, which was presumably a fictional surname he used online. Again, nicknames and handles were a bigger deal at that time, and many people were known for decades simply by their username on certain sites. But looking more closely into it, it appears that the original webmaster was someone called Dmitry Nikolajevich Korolev, so I think it's safe to assume that he's our man. Even with a name though, there's very little concrete information available on him, and I actually doubt it would even be particularly necessary for a basic video like this. I'd love to have gotten the chance to talk to him and ask for some background on the site, but it doesn't appear that many people get a response from the email on the site. Based on his writing in the chat room and on the site though, he seemed like an interesting, intelligent and thoughtful guy, so I hope he's safe and well. I was in two minds about using his full name, as he doesn't seem to use it himself in relation to the site, so I didn't want to expose him or anything like that. Besides, I don't think he ever broke the law or caused any serious problems, so hopefully, if indeed it's even the same guy, he doesn't take out a contract on me or something. Between its launch in 1993 and 2005, Deoxy.org stayed online and was updated regularly by Dmitry. After that, though, the site became erratic in its uptime and would often go offline for days or weeks at a time. Normally, it just appeared back online with minimal explanation, occasionally with no explanation at all, leaving the users wondering whether next time it would be down for good. Presumably, Dmitry just had other stuff to do in his life, as we all do, and decided to take time away from managing the site. Throughout its active time, it was clear that it was Dmitry's site and he took pride in maintaining it. Outside contributors were rare and Dmitry clearly had the final call on whether something went on the site or not. Based on that, I don't think someone like him would have relinquished control to a third party, and I can completely understand that sort of mentality when it comes to creative control. For the next 12 years, Deoxy.org would be up and down more often than an incontinent grandmother. Again, for weeks at a time it would just vanish, reappearing with some minor edit or some new videos hyperlinked, or sometimes with nothing different at all. It became something of a talking point within the entheogen community, and even now people still discuss the original site in hallowed terms. Many of us would migrate to other sites like the DMT Nexus or the Shroomery, but always checked in on Dmitry to see if he was back online, eager to see whether he'd gone mental and wiped it all out, or just added a new Gurdjieff epic for a laugh. It wasn't until 2017 when the site returned in a more stable, reliable form. Ryoxy.org promised everything from anarchy to neurogenetics, but this time as a protected domain with a multifaceted homepage that would allow the user to interact with different versions of the site all the way back to the original 93 format. As well as offering nostalgic HTML excursions, Ryoxy brought the old site into the new space, but unfortunately kept the links to videos on a long-dead platform, as well as a lot of dead links to older material. For all its faults though, Ryoxy at least gives us an updated version of what many grew to love over the decades. It stayed true to what Deoxy was, and although somewhat desolate now compared to the past, it's still a valuable website for anyone looking to expand their horizons. If it wasn't already clear from what I've said, I'm a big fan of Deoxy.org and an even bigger fan of all things psychedelic, so this is a video I've wanted to make for a while. Given the subject at hand, I know it's not going to be to everyone's tastes, but I really felt that the importance of free speech and free expression online, something Deoxy and Dmitry stood firmly for, was sadly relevant again today. Deoxy was one of the OGs of the internet, and almost 30 years ago, its creator saw the dangers for speech online. There were few who spoke up for this, and those who did, just like today, were mocked and called paranoid. Nobody saw the culture war coming, but some had flashes of insight and acted to prevent their rights from being trampled by political correctness. It's been coming for a long time, probably since the internet was first revealed to the public. The desire for those in positions of authority to silence the speech of those who would dissent. Now, we're in a place where those who once fought for free speech are now the ones bowing to their corporate owners. The ones enforcing fascistic demands on people simply for disagreeing with them on a minor issue. Deoxy should stand as a beacon for the freedom to speak and think as an individual. Dmitry took risks in putting this information online, and I suspect that a website like that nowadays would probably be confined to the deep web. This website brought information to people who would have otherwise gone without it. And whether their having access to that information is a good or a bad thing lies in the hands of only one person, the individual. If we deprive people of information, whether it be what we consider good or bad information, we deprive them of the right to think for themselves. If we shut down all the information we consider bad, it'll fester. It'll turn into poison until it seeps into the world at large. Bad ideas need to be heard just as much as good ones do. Discussion, debate, conversation, it's not that difficult, surely. Yet, here we are. A world where mainstream media fabricates stories to take away the income of an individual and depersonal them so that the world doesn't hear their words. This is dangerous. It needs to change before we can't go back. Anyway, thanks for watching. Please hit like and comment if you've enjoyed this one and let me know what sort of stuff you'd like to see next. If you'd like to and are able to support my work with the WEIRDNET and help me make more videos more frequently, then please donate using the links below. Thanks again. Take care of yourselves, and until next time, keep it weird. 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 Keep it weird.